I'm pretty kicked back about this. Like
Yeah.
it's just like whatever comes out. So what I wanted to know was what made you even start writing this book? Also, we're going. This is like the intro to the podcast right there. So, Landon, what made
Yeah.
you write this book? We won't talk about all the book right now. You can talk about yourself later,
Yeah.
as we get it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. The book came. All right. So at Liberty, where I go to school, I host this thing through my job called Coffee House, which is like a talent variety show, and
nice.
uh, it's kind of like hosting the Oscars. Kind of like I get up there, make a couple jokes, I introduce the acts, we give away like gift cards and stuff like that. It's just a fun night. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
7 to 8 thousand people. And so one of the themed ones we were going to do for, I think it was going to be the last spring, but then COVID. And so we were going to do the Late Show, which is going to be like SNL, Jimmy Fallon, all that stuff. And so we wanted to take like little bits of those different shows and make it our own, like Liberty-ize it. And so I wanted to do a segment. There's a guy named John Oliver who runs like Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. He's really funny. He does a lot of like research reports on different issues and companies. He's done one on televangelists, one on like the WWE. I just like makes
Nice.
fun of it, but to like to prove a point. Um, and so I was thinking like, okay, what is something that I can kind of make fun of, but to make like a larger point, and it'd be in front of like all like, college students. And I was like, oh man, like the dating culture here, because everybody always jokes about it because it's very like people will be getting people will be like, yeah, I'd feel like I'm being called to a season of singleness, and then we'll be engaged like within the next month, and it's like, man. And so it's just a lot of stuff like that. So then I was like, all right, well, if I'm gonna do this, I need to like actually do research and get people's real thoughts on it besides like the people that I just talked to. So I put out some surveys on social media, and a lot of people that I knew, people that I didn't know, they go to Liberty were answering the questions. A lot of it was anonymous, and they're just like, yeah, like this is what someone did to me. This is how I would rate the dating culture here on a scale of 1 to 10. And I was like, man, like not a lot of people have really positive things to say about this.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's sad. And I just remember like I was like, I've had hundreds of conversations with people about like how messed up stuff is and just how overcomplicated it is. Then I was thinking like, okay, I wonder if this is just camps. They go to some other Christian schools across the country, so like Michigan, California, different places, and a couple different denominations as well. And I was like, hey, tell me about the dating culture there. And a lot of them said the exact same stuff, like literally like word for word, the exact same problems. And then I reached out to friends at secular schools that were Christians, and they said like even within their little Christian communities that they have there, kind of same problems, same issues. Uh, and then I talked to my dad about it because I was like, man, this is nuts. Like all this stuff that I'm learning that like people have done. And he was like, Landon, like all this stuff was happening back in my day too. And I was like, that's really messed up that it's been like this problematic for this long. And a lot of it, I didn't even the book itself is called Detox. At least that's the name I want to go with. Uh, and the reason I use that name is because I want to like a lot of people describe the dating culture as being toxic. I didn't
Yeah.
even use that word. It was like just a word that people were freely using in their surveys. And so I was like, man, like this is like a big multi-denominational, multi-location, multi-generational problem that we have. And I really think that a lot of it is easy fixes. Dating isn't like a simple thing because it's two imperfect people doing an imperfect thing. So I knew it was going to be complicated anyways. But I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like with Christian dating, there's like different elements from different influences that have made it way more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah. I feel like, and this is just not even just only from my perspective. I think it's just from taking a step back and looking at it, right? Like your walk with Christ is already like so complicated in itself that like you having to learn to love somebody else is just like, oh, this is crazy. Look, this is just weird, right? But okay, so let me ask you this: like as far as dating throughout your life, have you like only like had crushes and gone on dates and little things like that here and there with like believers, or has it been both? Have you gone on both sides of the line?
Well, I mean, I grew up in church,
Yeah.
but I didn't really see like the difference in between it. Like I was just like, oh, as long as they're a good person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was how I was for a long time, and still until I started looking into it more. I didn't actually become a Christian until my sophomore year of high school.
Mhm.
And so I've after that, like especially when I got into college, then it was very much like, okay, I realized that I'm biblically I'm supposed to have like a Christian woman.
Mhm.
And so then like that's where I honed in. But I was mainly always like character, am I attracted to them, stuff like that.
Exactly, yeah.
And I've had like great experiences with people who weren't Christians. Like it wasn't like, oh, they were they
Yeah.
sucked because they're secular or whatever. But like I've had like me personally, I've had great experiences even throughout dating.
Yeah,
Have
yeah.
had some messes here and
Of
there,
course, of course.
but a lot of that's just patched up to like immaturity and growing up. But like my like I don't with the book, I was so nervous because I was like, man, if girls that I have like gone on dates with read this book, they're gonna think that I'm like subtweeting them a little bit, and I'm really
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've had a lot of like really great experiences with the girls that I've gone out with, which I can't say that for like everybody, but you know, I'm mainly like speaking into my friends will tell me stuff, or I'll like talk to people and they'll say the stuff that they do, and I'm like, that's kind of messed up. That's a little whack. So yeah, I'm mainly now in college definitely very honed in on only dating Christians, but I've kind of gone on even after I became a Christian in high school. I went on dates with like two girls that weren't Christians and
Yeah,
still
yeah.
aren't. So yeah,
It's funny to hear people that, because like the truth is like generally, like I would assume most people, it's hard not to, right? Like you can't really just stick to like there's there's like like I don't say there's like dating and finding somebody is hard enough. So then when you're younger and you try to stick to like one, we'll just say category of people, like you're not gonna be able to find nobody. Like, dude, like
yeah,
I've only dated one, like I think like one person that was like actually like Christian, and that was when I was younger. And then going up through my 20s, like but I had inconsistencies with like just I don't know, just the way I was living.
yeah,
So it's like I dated tons of girls, and like they would like yeah, I believe, but they probably believed like just as much as being the point, like we were just doing whatever,
yeah,
like living whatever, treating each other however, just wild.
yeah,
So hearing you say that, it's like I feel like a lot of people don't say that, because there's some people that I ask, I'm like, I like I don't they don't like steer around it, but it's just kind of like I don't know. I feel like a lot of people, when you ask about this topic, especially as of recently, when I talk to like other people, like maybe like a handful that I've spoken to, they're not entirely open about like I don't know, that that they've dated other people or that they've talked to other people. It's kind of like they're trying to play the part of what someone dating under the faith
yeah.
should do or be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. My big thing, and I talk about it in the book, is like there's plenty of people out there that say they are Christians, and there's plenty of people that go to church. Um, but like really can't rely on that. That's what I'm all for people just walking up and asking somebody out, and you just figure out whether they're a Christian on like first couple dates. I'm all for that.
Yeah.
I think that should happen more because people want to know the entirety of somebody before they go out with them. And I'm like, nah, just get to know them. But
Yeah.
but like I don't know, like it's not. I don't even remember where I was going with this.
No, you're fine, man.
They like you don't have to know everything about a person, and it's fine that I have like a history, and it really goes with like your convictions and realizing like, okay, I'm looking for somebody that's faith in practice, not just faith in, hey, I'm a Christian, I got a couple, you know, cross tattoos, and I got a Bible verse in my bio. Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
not what makes you Christian.
for sure.
It's like really just living it out. Because there's people that I'm like, oddly enough, have like displayed more godly characteristics and are not Christians than some actual people that proclaim that they are Christians, and at least in my experience.
No, 100%, 100%. That's why it's like you almost can't even have conversations with people about it because it's more than like, I mean, not to go down this rabbit hole. We'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I agree. Because like you could talk to somebody and everything they say is spot on. And even if they're telling the truth 100%, it's like, it's not about actions, but it kind of is. It's like, those are like
Yeah.
definitely evidence of like your faith,
Yeah.
right? For sure. But what I was going to ask was, dude, do you feel like the thing that I see the most is like this pressure to get like married super
Oh,
fast, dude? Like
yeah.
crazy fast, crazy fast. And that sounds so dumb because I'm 31, right? But I mean, like I see it like in pockets, boom, 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 like just like people that are like young. I literally like I'll stalk people's TikToks, like something will show up on my For You page. It's like a TikTok about marriage. I'll look in the bio. I'm like, this girl's 20 years old. She's 19 years old. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying, man,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
19, 20 years old, regardless of faith, that's early. That is so early.
Yeah. No, they will be like here at Liberty. I know a lot of people that have very recently got engaged, and a lot of them weren't dating for a very long time. And I'm not like against that necessarily. I think that really it is like the specific situations. Each one, like there's some people I'm like, why on earth are you waiting so long? Like you two know each other, you're great together, like you've been through some stuff. Yeah, go ahead. And then there's other people. It's like, all right, let's slow the brakes here a little bit. But I think that a lot of that pressure comes from the fact that we really, really elevate marriage within Christianity, and for good reason. It's a good gift, it's a great thing. But when it becomes like every pastor constantly brings up their wife and their kids, there's sermon series, partially because we highlight sex so much, which sex, a great gift, but like we make it so like the most magnificent thing in the world that's only for marriage. And so if you're at point A, which is singleness, point B is marriage, and point C is sex, if you see point C so precious that it's like the thing you gotta have right now, and the only way for it to be within like the legal confines is by getting to point B, I'm gonna want to, if I'm like really focused on point C, I'm gonna want to get to B so I can get to C as quick as I can.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a lot of like strange emphases. Um, I think that we take commands like uh, it's not good that man should be alone or be fruitful and multiply. And I think we make that so, oh, okay, so I have to get married or I have to have kids. And I'm not saying that like you shouldn't try to have kids or whatever. I think that we look at those passages and it's like, okay, so part of my life is I gotta have as many kids as I possibly can. So that means I gotta get cracking on getting married and then get cracking on having kids.
Yeah.
And I think that the main emphasis of scripture with what Jesus talked about is making disciples rather than making kids. Yes, in the context of Adam and Eve, it's be fruitful and multiply, because if they didn't, we wouldn't all be here because they
For
kind of
sure.
really needed to have a bunch of kids. But like in our context, if you look at like Paul or you look at John the Baptist, you got these dudes who are single and they are content in their singleness. And I think that the way that they were able to do so is because they were really, really plugged into community. John the Baptist, maybe not as much, but Paul very much so was constantly plugged into community. He was writing letters to people, getting letters from people, hanging out with dudes. So I think that that really is the quintessence of what it's not good for man to be alone looks like, is you were built for community, not necessarily it's not good for man to be alone, so you got to get booed up real fast.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people,
Um,
I like the point that you make. A lot of people definitely do that with like scripture, but with this stuff specifically, right? They take it and like, yes, if it comes from the Bible, like it's 100% truth, right?
yeah,
But when you take it out of, not out of context, but you take it at face value and you turn it into like, you put a foundation of like, this is a commandment when it's not. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like not everything in there is a commandment. Yes, it's the truth, and yes, you should do what it says. But if it says something's good, it's not like they're saying you have to do it. They're just saying like, hey, this is something that's good. Like the thing we were saying, be fruitful and multiply. And
Yeah.
all this stuff. It's like, it's not, you should get married at some point. You shouldn't be
Yeah.
running around trying to be with all kinds of women.
I'm not
Yeah,
anti somebody
exactly.
getting
Yeah,
married early or at any point, anything like that. Like I've like some people that I know have gotten engaged recently, and I'm super excited for them.
yeah, yeah.
And they really haven't been dating that long.
Okay, okay.
And with my fear with each individual thing like that, regardless of how long you've dated, whether you've been dating for years or whatever, is like one, getting caught up in adrenaline, because if everything's going great in a relationship, that might make you think like, this is my soulmate, and I don't really believe in soulmates. I don't
Yeah,
believe in
yeah,
like the one. I'm scared that some people think, because we really haven't fought like ever, because we've only been dating for 3 months and arguments really haven't come into the thing, that they think that that means this is spousal material. And
yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, man, because I've talked to a lot of people who either they themselves or they know people who got married really, really quick, like before the end of college, and are now divorced. And I think that part of that is, the reason for that is, one, they didn't understand like the full covenant of marriage,
For sure.
but it's also like compatible. Like there's things that they didn't know about the
Mm,
other person. Not that you know everything about your spouse ever, but it's just there was things that they got caught up in, that they ignored things, or even they were so caught up in wanting to get to like the status of being married, or the status of being able to like have sex within the
yeah,
biblical confines, that they kind of maybe lower their standards a little bit. Thrilled to death. I really want people to that are getting married quick or engaged quick to be seeking wise counsel and be mindful of that. And I don't think that people aren't being mindful of how serious marriage is. It's just that, like, I don't know, it's like a weird thing. It's like, man, you're really like, you're going for it. And yes,
yeah,
you're always taking a risk with marriage, because there's always the possibility of someone just hiding something. But really, like, how well do you know this person, especially when everything seems to be going well for like the first couple of months? I don't think you could base your entire rest of your lives together based off of the couple of months that everything's, lollipops and giggles, and you got all the butterflies in your stomach.
yeah. It's, okay. So it's like, I'm almost like, I get worried about like that when I hear like sometimes like younger people talk about like marriage and stuff like that. Cause I'm like, man, it's like how many, so like this, I've dated a lot of girls. Like I'm older, right? And yeah, I'm old, bro. I'm old, but I've dated a lot of girls, and but I'm thankful and I'm glad that I did. On one hand, I'm like, I wish I hadn't had gone through whatever, like just dating this person now, because it's like it's not a waste of time, but it's like it didn't amount out to anything, whatever.
Yeah,
But the craziness and chaos that comes with situations, or even the good times, the arguments here and there, whatever came along those relationships, man, you learn so much in regards to communication, and then having to be in like conflict with different people, you really understand. Well, I'm not saying I understand a lot, but I'm very thankful that I've gone that stuff, because now I understand like what conflict looks like from certain angles, like how different people receive love completely differently, like how different people give love different. Like it's just, there's so much. It's just like a can of worms almost. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
the to your point, when you're saying that like just because they haven't argued, they think that that's like a sign that they should get married, and it's like, man, you almost want to go through those arguments when you're dating. You kind of want to have like open conflict, because that's like really what you like learn like about people, because you're like both very vulnerable, both very have to be very honest, and even you don't even have to. Sometimes you're just honest because it's emotions are high, and you
yeah.
get to see what the other person's actually like. But I don't see that a lot with people that
There's
are, yeah,
I've heard stories of people that have been around somebody that they've dated them, got engaged, and the person just seemed to be have it all together, like total sweetheart. And then they get into the nitty gritty of marriage, and the person turns out to be super abusive, and they've just hit it really well when they were dating.
oh yeah,
And so it's not that like, oh, that instantly means that everybody that's like a quick engagement, they have some like horrific thing that they're hiding. It's more just like, I think that you need to you need to know how the other person, quote unquote, fights.
Yeah.
Because there's a difference between like, yeah, we may argue, but I never feel like it potentially is going to turn violent, or they never like make me feel like I'm crazy, never make me. I don't know the entirety of the term gaslighting, and I think that some people blame gaslighting, say some things are gaslighting that aren't, but
Yeah.
um, like like I know people they will gaslight people and all this stuff, and it's like if you hadn't have fought when you were dating and you learned that that's what they do and that they're manipulative and that they're all these things when they were showing their kind of like not their like spruced up like putting on a show, putting on a mask, they're showing their true selves.
Yeah.
You got to know what they're like. And so I talked to one of my my sophomore year roommate. He's one of my really good friends, and him and his girlfriend have been dating for probably like a year and a half at this point. And I asked him about it. I was like, "Have y'all?" I was like, "I assume that like the adrenaline's kind of worn off of it, and y'all like have fought more." And he was like, "Yeah, we definitely do like argue still, but I in a weird way, like I think that made the relationship that much more precious in that he realizes through conflict that like, man, I really do like really do like her, not just when everything's going good, even when things are going bad, I really still want to make things work and want to sort through these things." Um, and I think that that's like a sweet part of relationship, not everything being butterflies all the time. Sometimes it's like the compromise and the conflict that really makes a relationship sweet, is that the fact that both people are holding on through all that. And I don't think
100%.
you may not see that in a just couple month relationship straight into engagement, straight into marriage.
Yeah.
And granted, if you're friends with somebody beforehand, like if I dated one of my friends that I've known for years, that's very different. Like I probably don't need a whole lot of time with them, or because I probably know a whole lot of the stuff that
Yeah.
I need to know. So it really is individually based. It's just general guidance of like, be careful, seek wise counsel, realize that your emotions and like all these different things play a factor into all of this.
I see a lot of the consistencies in this culture in regards to like Christian dating, the same as like my friends who are not married yet, who are my age, that are non-believers, in the sense of like, well, the one I would call it like, I want to say an archetype of a relationship, but a little bit, is like the when you have the choice, the adult, just you have the adult choice option to get married like that. My friends in their 30s, or like these like maybe some kids at Liberty, right? When you're able to do that and you make these decisions quick, sometimes like your relationship hyperscales to a point where your love is not mature enough to support it, because there's a lot of like crazy baggage that comes along with it, and it doesn't, not even crazy like anything that's like super toxic or anything like that, just complicated stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
people's families, learning to interact with them, like I don't know, it could be anything. Dude, like so like I date a lot of girls that weren't believers, right? Like, dude, I'm telling everybody, like if you should not like be probably going on overnight trips with your girlfriend if you're not married, right?
Yeah.
But let's just say you you guys get married and you guys go on a trip for the first time, you guys are probably going to hate each other. It's like there's like so many little things that like will just pop up where you're just going to be like, oh, like this is what it's really like, you know what I mean? But you wouldn't know that by jumping into it so quick. You just think like, oh, I love this person, they're great, we're going to go do all this fun stuff and it's just going to be amazing, and at some point we'll fight, but we'll figure it out. But I don't know. That was a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, man. It's just
Yeah.
I was blowing my mind because I've been meeting a lot of people lately where they're just like in their early 20s, like, yeah, I'm like gonna get married sometime in the next blah blah years. And I'm like, that's cool, like that's dope. But it's like
Yeah.
I'm also like, man, this stuff's gonna get crazy. Like stuff
I
is
would.
gonna get wild.
I mean, I know me. I'm like if I met somebody and like I wouldn't mind being married before I'm 25. I don't care. I'm 22 right now, and like if that happens,
Yeah.
great. If it's beyond that, I think that one, we like have this weird thing where we look at people that are past college or like past 25, and we like kind of like, some people kind of treat people like that, like they're spoiled milk. And it's like a weird, like, oh, maybe something's wrong with them because they're not married yet. And it's like, I don't know about that. Like sometimes it's just life, or maybe they were dating somebody for a long time and didn't work out, or maybe they just haven't found anybody that they were like, yeah, I'm actually interested in this person because I see something in them.
Yeah.
I've seen several times where somebody has gotten asked out by somebody that was even like just a few years older, and they were like really sketched out because like that person's in a different stage of life, and they just kind of like treated them like they were a leper, and it was like,
Yeah.
come on, like there's nothing wrong with being older and not being married. And I think you're caught up in the culture that says, like I've had a professor, I love him to death, but I had a professor say, if you leave this school without being married or engaged, you are making a mistake. And I was like, man, I'm just trying to pass your class.
I know.
And I get that, like, within a Christian college, there's way more options here than there is probably anywhere else that I'm going to go to. And I get that, and a lot of good options here. But like the fact that like I'm playing a game of hot potato, and there's like a time bomb about to
Yeah.
go off, it's like, man, I don't need that. I don't have to. There's no set time that I have to be married.
Yeah, bro. Like this is probably gonna maybe I don't even know if you disagree. If you disagree, that's fine too. Dude, I wish like man, if I could tell you something, you take it or leave it. Who am I? I'm nobody. I'm 31. I'm not married. But I was in a long relationship where I thought we were going to get married and I changed my mind, right? For good reasons.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong with her. Just, relationship stuff.
yeah,
What I would say though, dude, I don't know if you're dating someone right now, but date as many people as you can, bro. I don't mean you got to get serious. I don't mean like whatever, like just have as many casual dates as you can, meet as many girls as you can, not because it's like, oh, get it out because you're going to settle down. Not at all. But because, bro, you will learn so much about yourself and like really understand your threshold for like patience. You're going to learn your threshold for like, I don't know, like being attached to different people. Like there's so many different dynamics that come along with just meeting different people where it's like you really start to you stop objectifying women. As dumb as that sounds, I don't think all guys objectify women. I think
yeah,
guys and girls both objectify each other. And we,
mm,
even if we, whether believers or not, we just do it.
yeah,
But when you start dating a bunch of girls and you see like a lot of consistencies, but a lot of also like there's big differences, you start actually looking at people as like people and not just like, oh, this girl that I met at the store that I really, really like. And like, like, I don't know. It sounds dumb to say you don't look at them like prizes anymore or like that they're like someone that you could possibly be like your girlfriend. You actually look at them for like, who is this person? Who is this person
mm,
compared to that person? I like
yeah.
this. I don't like this, which sounds really bad, but dude, it helps so much. It'll help so
I
much.
I think that I agree with you in part on the dating as many people as possible thing, because I think that there's something within Christian dating culture. I think that we're afraid to, like, that like we really want to dig deep on a well, and like
Mm,
we're scared, like we feel like we need, like, because of how much we gonna be my wife, that like it's like you feel like you have to move on years later before you
yeah.
can date somebody again. I and this may be unpopular because I know good pastors who advise like a lot of dating is just glorified divorce practice, because you're like getting really choosy and you're just like easily being like, nah, I'm done for this because it's hard. Um, I think that there is wisdom in and figuring out what you like, and by just like, hey, I thought this person was cute, I know some very basic things about them, I can just go out with them and be like, hey, we can go on a date, nothing serious, just get to know you and we can see where this goes. And
Exactly.
I'm against, if you were like, no, I really don't want to get married, maybe ever, or like within the next few years or anything like that. If you're just like, you have no motivation, anything like that, then I think you're being dumb. I think
Yeah.
you're casually dating. But I think being casual in dating, where it's like,
100%.
hey, we can just we can just go out and we can get a cup of coffee and we can sit here and just get to know each other. And if something comes from this, great. If nothing does, it doesn't ruin my life. And I can I have a knack for being friends with girls that I've gone on dates with. Like not everyone. Like I'm not super close to all the girls I've ever dated, but like one girl I went on a bunch of date with, she cuts my hair now. And like like another one, I was like one of the first people to meet her nephew. And like it's like so I have that dynamic and I've learned even by going on dates with them. And yeah, I knew them a little bit before,
Yeah.
but like I was like, okay, we went on dates, and while it may not have worked out romantically, I still value you as a person, and I think that you can give me insights if I'm in a future relationship because you've dated me, that you know, like, hey, you know when I'm being dumb, and you know when maybe like this is something that I need to improve on, and we can be honest with each other because we're friends. And so I think that there definitely is a lot of value in just like, hey, nothing serious, but it could potentially get serious if things go well. We just hang out. And like people are so scared about the term hang out because like it's not really clear. And I do think you should make stuff clear, but like, man, just
It
go
doesn't
to,
have to be clear. It really does. It should, like,
yeah,
there shouldn't be that
yeah,
much pressure on people to go out and have a good time with somebody and just kind of get to know them. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, because like, dude, like it took me a long time and probably into like my mid 20s, honestly, maybe even late 20s to, well, mid 20s to realize it, but really into my late 20s to actually be like, oh, I got to put this into practice. That like the goal of a lot of those relationships when they end is more than just also you learning what communication is like with other women, but also like I don't know why I never thought of this. Maybe normal dudes think of this, but like I think I was like 25, 26 when like I was like, oh, some of this stuff I'm doing for like my future person that I'm going to be with. Like I have to like actually put an effort to be like a good partner for somebody else, not just like learn what women are like and what they don't like and all this stuff. And like, and even that I didn't even put into practice. And even my friends are talking about this all the time. Like none of us put into practice until like, man, close to 30. And even I have friends that are married there. It's like, they're like, I was married for 5 years before I started even realizing like, oh, I have to like put an effort to be a better husband. It's not just we stay together and try not to argue, you know?
yeah.
It's a
I
wild thing.
think I think the clarity need comes from the culture that I'm in, where it's like everyone feels like everything is a date. And so then it's like if you don't define something as either being a date or not being a date, then you're being unclear, and then they start to stress out. Like
Mm,
the amount of conversations people I've had, they're like, what does this person mean by this? By I want to hang out, or I wanna do this. And it's like, one, I think that if you're confused about it, I don't think you should go straight to your friends. I think you should just ask.
100%.
And we stuff like that. And I think that's a general dating thing. I don't think that's just limited to Christian
Mm-mm.
dating. I think that a lot of people, they'll be like, I'm so confused on where they stand on this thing. And instead of just asking them, they ask everyone but them, when it's just like, and I think that that's like a big grown up thing that I've learned is like, as awkward as it may be, I could really just ask like, all right, how do you feel about like where we're at right now? Like, how do you feel about like maybe another date, or like where are you at? And it's led to really really great conversations, and I think it's a very welcomed thing where I'm just open, honest, very clear, and I think that people really appreciate when you are clear on where you are actually at. Like I'm not gonna ask somebody out on a date and then pretend that it's not a date and like hold back like, oh no, we were really just hanging out. It wasn't a date. Like if I want to go on a date with you, I'm gonna say I want to go on a date with you. Would you like
Yeah.
to go?
Yeah. 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 No, bro. I completely understand. I'm one of those people that's like, I'm just so like straightforward. But maybe that's just people over here. Like I feel like people in California are just like super straightforward, maybe
Yeah,
possibly
I'm
douchey.
I'm I'm Southern, so it's like the sweet, like you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, like that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense because yeah, it makes yeah, very much so. I have two questions from I did an Instagram story earlier and I picked the two best ones that
Here,
because they were just kind of random, but these ones are actually from girls, so like we're gonna choose these ones. So one of them is let me open this up to see what it was. Okay. She said her question is, do you think love is a feeling or a choice? So you can give the binary answer of yes or no right now, and then we'll actually jump into the conversation. And this is from Lovebug C.
I'm gonna say love is mainly a choice.
Mainly, yeah.
Because I think that if you are completely devoid of all feeling for something, it's like hard. But at the end of the day, love is also kind of commitment. It's like it's an integrity. It's a lot of different things. It's sticking by somebody regardless of what their situation is, and that's best exhibited. But love is best exhibited in the fact that like Christ died for us even when we didn't deserve it, and that love was unmerited. I think that a good human example that's not God man Jesus is a guy named Jay Wolf. They own a company or blog like mission thing called Hope Heals. They I think were both models at one point. I know she was, and he was a lawyer. Life was going great, and then she had some weird like stroke very
Oh
randomly,
wow.
very very young. I think they had like one kid at the time, and she just had a stroke, and so she actually went into a coma for a long time, and so now she can like walk a little bit, but it's like she has to be really assisted. Like she's not what she was when her husband first married
For
her.
sure, for sure.
And not that like I hate that this isn't like a bare minimum thing, but like, oh, he didn't cheat on her. Like that's kind of the bare minimum. Like, yeah, of course he shouldn't
Yeah.
have. But like he didn't sign up for this particular thing. It wasn't like he knew like she had no medical thing that was like, oh, this might happen. It's not like cancer where it's like a lot of times it's genetic. It was really just random.
You're essentially losing your wife for a little bit,
Yeah, yeah,
possibly forever.
and she wasn't like she very well could have died in the
Mhm.
coma or whenever, and he was still very much faithful to her throughout it, and so he wasn't able to talk to her when she's in a coma, and there's probably a lot of feelings there. There's a lot of whatever, but really the choice was I'm gonna love her. I'm committed to her. Not that it's completely devoid of feeling. Vodi Bakum has a good thing on that. Oh, I'm gonna look up Vodi Bakum's definition
He has a
of
lot, man. The
love.
guy's got bars, bro. That guy has
It's
bars.
I can't believe. Let's see. Vodi Bakum is the biggest blessing to me in the past like couple of years. That I've like he's the man.
I one of my top three for real.
He says biblical love is an act of the will accompanied by emotion that leads to action on the part of its what dang it. It's like a link, but it won't
Yeah,
like show me
yeah.
the full quote. Oh, okay, here it is. Biblical love is an act of the will accompanied by emotion that leads to action on behalf of its object. It's not completely devoid of like feeling.
Yeah,
It's definitely part of it, but it's not like if the feelings aren't there, then you're just like,
exactly.
no commitment here.
Exactly. I so I started, man, I have so much content I still haven't put out on it. I've been asking something similar to this, like do you choose who you fall in love with? Do you not choose who you fall in love with? It's kind of similar to her question. Is love a choice or is it a feeling? But the part that was leading me to say you don't entirely choose, like you kind of do, but not really, was because there's no way that I could ever say like that there's emotions out of it entirely. And there is a particular feeling that comes with it, right? Because like so like from a spiritual level, right? Like God is spirit, God is love. If love is a spirit, then it's kind of like if I'm not treating everybody equally, am I completely void of that spirit of love? Like there's things that I wouldn't do for certain people, but I would without a doubt do for my mother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without a
Yeah.
doubt. So it's like, do I not love my mother because I wouldn't do it? Am I completely void of that spirit of love? Am I only making that? You know what I mean? There's so many variables, right? But then also too, I always bring up the thing. It's like chemistry. It's like I 100% believe that whenever you get married, you choose and you stay with that person. That's your choice. You are committing to them. But there are people that you are going to feel a certain way. If you haven't experienced it, it sucks. Like not you, but I'm saying in general, right? Like
Yeah.
it's hard to explain, but there are people that you feel a particular way about, and there's going to be no explanation for you at all. And that's like a that's a reality, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And whether they're compatible or not, whatever, that's irrelevant. But it's like just that variable alone, the emotional side of it, it's like, man, I don't know. It's hard to say that there's no feeling at all. Like, you know what I mean? Especially when you say like God is spirit, love, like God is love. So that's that. I don't know. It's hard for me to be like, oh, then there has to be some type of feeling there. It's not just only choice. You know what I mean? I just don't know the ratio. I don't know the percentage.
Yeah, I think that a good example of how like there really does need to be kind of a feeling is the dynamic of when Jacob is fooled into marrying
Mm,
it's like two sisters, and he definitely makes the choice to love one way more than the other, and he has way big feelings for the one over the other, and it really is detrimental. But like that, there is that's an aspect. Like okay, when you were talking, I thought of this. If I had a if somebody random in the world needs a kidney and I'm an exact match, but at the exact same time, my own child needs a kidney, like, yes, I technically could choose, and that person might be, like a much worse situation, but I don't know them and I kind of really don't have any feelings for them, even though they're valuable and they're made in the image of God. I'm gonna go with my child because I there's that like feeling attachment as well as like the choice. Because granted, kids get annoying, and therefore you kind of have to daily choose to love your kid, regardless of the fact of whether they're getting on your last nerve or not.
yeah, 100%.
I don't know. Bless all you parents out there, but like it's not devoid of emotion, but there definitely has to be the you're choosing daily regardless of the circumstances, because it's like, all right, what if they start treating you like crap? uh what are you going to do? You're going to be like, well, no, then now I don't have to love them anymore. Or what if even like you're like, I'm kind of over this. And
Yeah.
in a dating context, if you completely are like uninterested, if you are not excited at all to ever see somebody, you probably should just break up. Like, it's not like
Yeah.
you shouldn't like continuously be like, well, I have to choose to love them. Like, you're dating them, versus marriage is like you're committed, so like you make it work. But dating with the freedom of dating, you're single still technically, so like you don't have to stay in this. But just because like you aren't feeling it one day doesn't mean that it has to end or that
True.
everything is wrong. It's mainly just like using discernment of like how frequent is that, over what things, other environmental factors. Like if you're not sleeping a lot and then you don't feel whatever towards a person, factor in the fact that you haven't slept well. And so like you're probably, I had a youth pastor that said, never make like a really, really big decision if you aren't well fed or well rested, because you're really going to be acting out on those sorts of things, and that'll kind of blind your whatever. But yeah, I like that question. Because I think it's very it's very touchy, because people get very caught up in feelings, but like, are they really committed to this person? And there's a lot of, because you can get feelings for stuff that really isn't good for you.
Oh, definitely, definitely. The other part of that too is like, what's funny is like, and I'm gonna ask the other question next, is that so there's things too that, because I agree that I think the majority of it is a choice, right? But the part of it that comes along with that is like sometimes the emotion is that precursor to that choice. So it's like you do things for people in relationships sometimes and you sacrifice things that you didn't think you would ever sacrifice for somebody. And I don't mean
Mm,
anything bad. I just mean like sometimes you help people out or sometimes they help you out. And that's really kind of catalyzed by like some unexplainable emotion that you have for them. And like
mm.
you wouldn't have made that for just anybody. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah.
there's a certain level of intensity where you're like, yeah, I don't know, like drive 12 hours for you to drop this off and whatever. It could be anything, right? So that's like one thing too, because a lot of people, there's some people that I've asked that like have only dated like a handful of people, or they haven't dated anybody, or like they've only been with the same person like for like years and years and years. And I think that because of the lack of I don't know, the lack of experience. They were saying like kind of like, no, it's all a choice, it's all a choice. And I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes you make some choices for some crazy reasons. Like, I don't know, it's weird. But let me
I
see.
think I
Go.
think that while I think that we're definitely supposed to like follow God's example, and that like it's not really, it's more based upon like the heart, like God looks at the heart rather than like what man looks at,
For
and
sure.
man really is very like looks centered. But I think that like the love that we are supposed to model, that is very like hard and like complicated within feelings and all this stuff, is in Romans 5, where it talks about, for while we were still weak at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly. For one will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person one would dare even to die. But God shows his love for us, and that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Like we were, we're not, we're not worthy of love. Like there probably isn't, like we've given God every good reason not to love us.
Oh,
And
100%.
and that's why it's like so miraculous that he does. But in human relationships where it's not sovereign king who designed us, it's very like complex of like, all right, just how far do I go with helping a person that I really have no emotional attachment to, versus people that I know and I'm invested with and committed to covenantly. It's a very interesting dynamic, but it's not that like I still believe in making sacrifice. Even if you were married to somebody, not treating other people like trash. Like,
Sure.
yes, you're committed to your wife or husband, but that doesn't mean that every other human being doesn't exist and that their needs aren't important as well. But like you do prioritize, because one, you made a covenantal commitment to, the other one, you're just like, this is somebody that I know. But that's something that you guys can do together. But it's not like that person completely doesn't matter.
Yeah. Man, you gave me another question. I want to get to this other question, but now I have another one because I see some consistency. Like, so it's like, okay, you go on, if you go on, like, you get stuck on that side of like Christian TikTok, man, you see, you get a lot of like, people are just throwing their stuff out there. You know what I mean? Like, people are like this, that, what I see, you know what I see too is like, do you think that people that are like younger, maybe 18 to like 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I would say anything under 25 is still relatively young. Like I'm young, but I would say anything under 25 is still relatively young, which is a good thing. I don't mean like I
Yeah,
don't
I
mean
get you.
naive. I don't mean immature. That's not what I'm saying at all. I just
Yeah.
mean like considered young. Do you feel like that a lot of the things that go on in the Christian dating community that um there's a lot of things that are very niche specific to the faith, but also there's a lot of things that everybody, regardless what they believe, deals with. And like there's things that people are boxing themselves out of thinking about because when it's easy to think about like this is all a choice, this is all a choice, but then the reality of like certain situations are really hard to grasp without experiencing them sometimes. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think I do. I think, like you're saying
I'm saying
that
like this. I
there,
could say this, right? So I could be like, man, I love God, right? I should make choices to obey God or things that are out of worship. And that's going to be evidence of my faith and my love for God, not some feeling I have, right?
yeah,
Well, how much of those choices are me being led by the Spirit? How much of those choices are me making them on my own? If I'm making them on my own and I'm not being led by the Spirit, is like, am I just going through like weird acts because I think this is what you're supposed to do? If I'm being led by the Spirit, like, is that actually loved? Is that not any of my choice? The point I'm trying to get to is like with in relationships, it's really easy to say you just got to make the right choices and we got to just refer back to the Bible and we got to do this and we got to do that. And it's like, that's the 100% truth. There's no, that's 100% valid. There's no gaps. But when time for rubber to hit the road, it's not always like that. Do you know what I'm
oh yeah.
saying? Like not at all. Like you're never like very
Except for the
rarely.
fact that like there is, yeah, there's no dating in the Bible.
Well, it's like, yeah, it's like, well, even if you were married, the chances of you and your wife having some type of conflict and then in the middle of it be like, you know what, we can't solve this. Let's go see what scripture says. Like
And it's
it's
like,
probably not going to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of general advice and guidance with it throughout scripture that's like maybe this is how you get to it. And there's some clean cut things that are like, hey, like be submissive, you know, treat one another with respect, all that stuff, and love one another. But like a lot, it's not like when deciding, you know, whose house to go to for Thanksgiving. There's nothing like that. Like there's no biblical real answer for that conflict.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I think that you really when and to talk about like discerning like spirit and all this stuff, you really have to look at scripture and say, all right, is the thing that I'm doing in am I equating like my feelings? Am I saying that my feelings are definitely what God is saying? And I don't know. It's like it's a very. I don't think I fully understand your question. If I'm being
No,
perfectly
no,
honest.
no, no. It's well, it's kind of hard. I know because it's like I'm trying to explain it in a way that's like think of it like this. Like, is there any difference in this choice of what's the difference in the choice of love when it's like when you first start dating somebody, and let's say you got to drive 10 hours to visit her family with her on a holiday, right? You guys drive 10 hours. When you first start dating, you're like, awesome. All right, of course. I'm gonna make that decision for you. It's not even hard. And
Oh
then you
yeah.
guys date for 3 years. And it's the third year in a row, you gotta make that 10-hour drive, and you're like, "Oh, I don't want to do this. And there's an argument and all this stuff, but you still do it. Like, what's the difference? Is that first time not out of love, even though you made the same choice, but it was because of emotion? Is
Okay.
that less love
Yeah.
than, do you know what I mean? Saying there's a lot of weird comparisons like that that like I feel like we don't like addressing. Like it's like or not we. A lot of people don't like addressing because they're like, no, it's a choice, it's a choice, it's a choice. It's like, yeah, but the driving factor for that choice and those consistencies
Was
are
your
very different.
feelings?
And which one's love, which one's not. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they're both love, but I've also like to completely shun out the emotional side of it sometimes it's kind of like I have a hard time with it because I'm like, that's just not how humans are.
Yeah.
No human is like that. Nobody.
I think it's best exhibited in Ephesians where it talks about like uh, a husband is to lay down his life for the wife. Like his husband is to love his wife the way that Christ loves the church, and that he laid his life down for her. And that doesn't necessarily mean that like you're thrilled about the fact that you have to do this. Like it's a lot of like sacrifices, and it's not easy,
For sure.
and it's a lot of give and take and stuff like that, and that's hard. There's a cartoon of this guy. It's like these two old people, and they're like had very obviously been fighting. But he's like really, really grumpy looking. But it's raining, and he's holding the umbrella over his wife, even though he's like really mad.
Yeah.
And it's like it doesn't mean that just because they're at the current moment they're feeling anything but love, that like his commitment doesn't still stand to
Yeah, yeah.
her. Um, I think that like emotions can be your driving factor for a bit, but when emotions run out, where where are you really coming from? Are you coming from a place of I'm only here so long as I feel good, or are you coming from I'm here no matter what? And that's different when it's a marital commitment versus dating. If it's like I'm not saying run at the first sign that like you are at a bad thing. Like I don't think that you should like run away at the first fight, but I'm saying like within a marital commitment, you're there regardless.
Yeah.
Versus a dating commitment, if it's more like consistent fights and you're like maybe this really isn't working out, then you're good to go because you're still technically single. Because biblically there is like even an engagement, you're still single until like the
Yeah.
moment that you are married.
Yeah. If we're gonna be like yeah, back then. Yeah, there
So
was there was no real engagement. It was just like that dude had that contract, gave some money, went away, and then came back randomly to get that girl, and then
yeah,
yeah.
like even Joseph was he was betrothed to Mary, but he still was like it says divorce her quietly, but they even weren't really married yet.
Oh, that's why I had a conversation with my uncle about this the other day because I was like, because we were going over that, we're like, I never, we were, it was like playing devil's advocate.
Yeah,
I was just like, I listen, I know Mary and Joseph were married when Jesus was born, but let's talk about this because there is that gray area with that word because it doesn't mean engaged and like according to like custom, like you have to like basically they consummate the marriage obviously when they have sex, but it's like they never had sex. And
Yeah.
like it was just yeah. Anyways, that's a rabbit hole I'm gonna get into, but I'm gonna let it be. I'm gonna let it be. But so really quick before we move on to this next question. Um so if you sacrifice and this person goes on this 10-hour drive with their wife, even though they don't want to, that's love without a doubt. We could both agree on that.
Yeah.
When they're first married and they're in that honeymoon stage and the emotions are high and he makes that decision to go with her and he's happy to do it and he's not angry, there's nothing negative about it. Do you think that that is love also?
Oh yeah. I
Okay,
don't think, yeah. I think
cool.
either can be, but really like your total view should be on the commitment side, and it like takes
Yeah,
different forms and looks very different.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think if anything, the love may be a little bit greater in that you when you really don't feel like it, when it's been a long day and you're still choosing to like put their needs in front of your own. I think
bro.
that that might be a greater love.
I'm gonna save that clip right there, and I'm gonna send it to you because when you're married or
Yeah, I
engaged, and your wife, and she goes, but I want you to want to do it for me. I'm gonna send
yeah.
this to you,
I'm gonna be like, I'll be like, I regret making this
bro.
interview.
It's
I
never
think,
enough to do it. It's that you have to want to do it.
yeah, I think that there is like, I think about this a lot because I'm like, all right, I'm writing a book and
Mm,
I'm not dating anybody. Actually, all right, this is funny.
mm,
The last time that I had a legitimate kiss, as in like not playing spin the bottle, not being
yeah,
stupid,
yeah,
was uh the day that Donald Trump was elected, like the first time.
yeah,
So like, so it was November 3rd or November, whatever, like
yeah,
back in 2016. So it's been 4 years since even
yeah,
anything
yeah,
like that. But I've dated people,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
like, all right, I haven't like, been super, super committed to anybody. So like, do I have any authority to speak on these matters? And I worry about that. And I'm like, I'm not married. How can I speak into marriage things? And I talked to my friend Michaela about this. She's a girl I work with. And we both came to the consensus that like, it's not like single people can't figure stuff out. There's certain experiences that you can only really learn by being in a relationship, but there's also some things you can only learn by being single. But it's not like I can't observe a dating couple and be like, okay, it's really, I could tell you exactly what you could do to fix this. You just won't listen because you're so like kept up with emotion. Really, it's just you need to not make smart aleck comments
yeah.
after she says something you don't like, and like your life would be a whole lot easier. But like they would never notice that because they're in the relationship. But like sometimes an outsider perspective, like you can still learn a whole bunch.
You know what it is, dude, and it's like I guess it goes to like why it's such a good idea that you have this book is that it's not about being qualified or not in the sense of like what you've experienced. Now, don't get me wrong, if you had experienced a lot of dating, that would probably there'd be more substance, just like anything, just like
Yeah,
anything. If you were 10 years older, there'd be more substance.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't know if it's a qualified or unqualified thing. I think of it more as like this is a necessity that people don't don't really take advantage of. Like there needs to be conversations about that. People that aren't married need to talk about marriage more, not necessarily in the sense of like, hey, I'm trying to marry you. It's in the sense of like, it's going to happen one day. You should probably talk about this stuff. Some real realities. If you guys get together, figure some stuff out. That's great.
or or some people need to not talk about marriage as much because it's like
Too
all
early.
they ever talk about. Like people, like I know people that they have been like, yeah, I went on a date and they brought up they were talking spouse like first date, and I knew nothing of them before that, and it was like, what in the world? You don't even know what they want for dinner, much less like whether they're your spouse or not. Good heavens, slow down. And I don't know, people are eager.
Bro, let me tell you right now, people are very so not only in the Christian community, but dude, let me tell you, like actually California's a little bit different. I guess girls here, like they're cool with not getting married, like a lot of them, bro. And but like I would say that 28 plus, about three-fourths of them, they're just like they're like it's like, dude, they'll if you got a ring, they're like, here, I got it. I'm waiting for it. You know what I mean? It's just wild. But yeah, dude. But I have another question that I want to get to from the Instagram story.
Okay, yeah, go
All right.
ahead.
Her question is how to date well when you haven't been in a serious relationship since 2014. And this is from T. Peasel.
Mm. How to date well when you haven't been in it. I mean, like I'm semi in that boat. I mean, I've gone on dates. Like I went on dates. Full confession, I went on dates over the quarantine thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I cheat. I cheat a little. And so, really, it just comes down to like one, always be honest. Be very not like you don't have to tell everything that you've ever been through, your all your deepest darkest secrets first couple dates. But like if you're like, hey, I really don't know where I'm at with this, and like I don't know if that means we should end. Like talk about stuff. Don't be afraid to talk about stuff, and be honest about where you're at. Not trying to spare their feelings, but be gentle. Like you don't have to be like if you're like, oh, you realize that you don't like the person. You don't have to be like you're the worst human being I've ever met, and you bore the ever living daylights out of me. But like you could be like, I just don't really like see anything here, and like I think that like I'm not like super excited when we go on dates. As harsh it is to be honest. Dating well looks like uh, knowing and respecting proper boundaries, and
100%.
I think like we get so scared by the term purity culture because like it's not like I'm like I don't care if you hold hands. I think some people get like even sketched out by stuff like that, but really it is just like all right, if I'm gonna go over to someone's place and I'm gonna watch a movie, it's a smart idea to know either have the like one of that person's other roommates there, bring a roommate along, just know that they're in the house and
Yeah.
like leave a door open. And it's just mainly out of like just being smart. It's not like you're not being stingy, you're not being stuck up, you're not being like so like old fashioned. You really are just being smart for several reasons.
Yeah. Like don't go Netflix and chill, put yourself in the position to do those stranger things, huh? You're
Yeah.
like
That was good.
all
You
right,
just come up with that?
Well, the wordplay has been, I guess, used a little bit, but I thought I
Uh,
came with it, but I didn't. I didn't. Someone's kind of had some variation of it. It's a
you,
bar
you, you can take credit for it. Uh,
though.
but like, yeah, respect those boundaries. Don't be going and parking a car in like the back of a parking lot and be like, oh, we're just gonna talk. Man, don't be an idiot. Go to a well-lit area.
Yeah.
Um, respect boundaries. Be honest. Just have fun. Really, like, yeah, like it. Like I said earlier, casual in dating. You don't have to figure out everything your entire future within the first couple of months or like the first date or anything like that. You could just have fun and just be honest and just have like a good time and just because this is what I think a lot of people do. I think that when we're Christians and we're trained to look for godly characteristics, we will say this person's a Christian. Check. That's all I need. Yes, but also let's take into a fact that if the person bores the crap out of you, you probably shouldn't get married to them. Or if you think that they are butt ugly, yes, like their character should be the thing that matters most. But if no one wants to be with somebody that thinks that they are unattractive, like you don't have to like force yourself to date somebody that like you realistically aren't attracted to at all. You should be mindful of like petty things that like if you're petty, but like just be like, do I when you go on a date, ask yourself genuinely, are they good for me? And did I have a good time? And then that decide whether you go on the next date or not. And
100%.
and I'm like I get like the whole like maybe something was traumatic in the past and like you're having a hard time like getting over somebody or you've been through a lot of hurt. I don't think that like I got a lot of flack on TikTok for this one that I have almost like 100,000 views on it, and I got like probably like 75% people like agreed with me. 25% of people were like, no. I think that singleness isn't the only place where you can grow.
It's
I think
very
that
true.
you because it's not like married people don't grow in their faith still.
Yeah.
I think you should have a solid foundation, but it's not like you have to fully arrive at a place of total readiness before you can get into a relationship again.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can grow from a relationship, from a healthy relationship, but at least have a good solid foundation of a place.
One thing that I've noticed also is that so everybody, when you go on dates and you get back into the scene, 99% of the people you go on dates on, the good ones, that's not necessarily who they are. I'm not saying they're putting on a front. It's just everybody wants to make good impressions. Everybody's going to be polite. Everybody's, if they think you're cute, if they like you, they're gonna want to be like on their best behavior. There's obviously red flags. There's people that are jerks that you don't want to date, people that are rude girls, rude dudes, whatever. But I will say this: the people that are themselves and honest, not treat you bad, but also not putting on a front, like just like they're just themselves, like unapologetically. You gauge that well, because most people would say like, oh, that's how they are now, imagine they're gonna be 10 years, and it's like, nah, like that's them. You know what I mean? Like the people that seem perfect, they're not. None of us are. Nobody's perfect. You know what I mean? So don't gauge it off that off all the time. Like if someone seems like they're kind of like genuine and honest, regardless of it, whether they seem weird or not, those are usually good people.
People are like date for potential. I'm saying nah, date for because potential sometimes doesn't come into fruition. Date for what they are like right now. If
Yeah,
nothing else was to change, if they were
exactly.
like to be like, not that they have to be the fullest mature person in the world, but like if it's not like, oh, I'm sure eventually they'll become not a jerk. You don't
Nah,
know that.
and nobody really
And
matures that much more, honestly.
yeah.
They don't, dude. No difference. No difference.
It's just flat lines after like 23, but
Oh, dude, I'm not joking. Like after like 18, 19, everybody flatlines, men and women. People will say otherwise. You just get more responsible and more disciplined, but maturity,
yeah,
bro, it doesn't change that much more, honestly. It really
yeah.
doesn't.
Everyone really is like on their best behavior. So that's why I'm big on. That's why I think I advocate so much for, man, like, why don't you date your friends? I know it might be weird to like think about it, but if you know somebody and you already know some things that you're like, all right, this is how I know that they are when they're frustrated. This is how I know that they are when they're mad at a friend and that friend isn't around and they're not like talking crap about them. This is how I know that they are with when they're really, really happy. And these are things that I don't know, like you do, it's a little riskier to just completely go on like a date with somebody you don't know. Not saying nothing good can come from it and not saying you shouldn't do it, because I've done it and it's worked out great and I met great people from it. But it's also like, if I know the person, I already know kind of what I'm getting into to begin with, and I
Exactly.
know a more genuine them, and I can realize maybe some of their better qualities by going out with them versus like go out with a complete stranger. Then it's like, I really don't know if you're as kind as you are trying to pretend that you are.
Yeah. It's very sorry, my niece is like screaming in the background.
And yeah, it's a niece, man.
No, yeah, dude, I agree. That's actually a good one. Some people are kind of scared to do that as far as like dating people that they already know and this and that. I man, that's so much into. I wish I could give her like a hard answer. Just this girl, like, just go on dates. Don't expect a whole lot. Do it because you want to get to know somebody and have a good time, but don't have an agenda. Just go
Yeah,
there, try to
yeah,
see what they're like.
have a good time. I went.
Exactly.
I will say that I think, kind of like going off of what I just said, I I talked to some girls like a year ago, and they were like, no dudes just ask girls out that they don't know. Like no one, like they're like that's such a lost art. And
Bro,
like I just said, like I'm all for like if you're friends with somebody, just like ask out friends. But I'm also like, man, if especially at a Christian college, there's probably like at least like a 80% chance that they probably are like at least semi serious about their faith. So it's like a
yeah.
good risk. And I went up and asked this girl out that I did not know. I knew I saw her talking to one of my friends. That was the only thing I knew about her. And I was like, oh, she's cute. And I just went, and it was nerve wracking, but it was so like, I told my friends about that I did that, and they're like, you're kidding. Like, they're like, no one ever does that anymore.
It's
It's
so
like,
crazy.
it's like an act of Congress trying to get a guy to ask a girl out. And I was like, it's like, dude, just if you think she's cute, and you don't, there's no like blatant red flag, just go on a date with her. And if you find out like, oh yeah, she's not a Christian, or she's actually just an awful human being, you don't have to go on a second one.
Yeah. That's so wild. That's what makes me feel old. Cause like, so I haven't gone on a date in a little while because of the COVID stuff. And then also like before that, I was in a relationship for a little while. But before that, from like 18 to 28, 27, 28, I just go up to girls all the time. I go, no one does that anymore. Maybe that's why I was working, because nobody does it. You know what I mean? I'm like, they had slim pickings.
Oh
That's
yeah,
probably what it is.
it's like they will think you were the bravest man alive.
That's probably
It
what it
is
was.
it is nerve wracking. I'll admit I was sweating buckets, and
Yeah.
I babbled all over all my words. I stumbled over everything, and I looked like an idiot. But she was like yeah, and I was like I almost I think that I said, wait, are you serious? When she said yeah, I think I did, but I was like, oh, I was expecting this to go, because girls, 99% of girls aren't going to laugh in your face or hit you
It's
when you
true.
ask them out.
It's true.
As long as you're not weird about it. Like, don't be a creep, but like,
Yeah.
just be like, make yourself not small. I think the biggest advice, not to you, because I feel like you know what you're doing.
No.
But like, but like, I think that some dudes like go over there with all this big bravado, and that's really intimidating. Versus if it's like you're like very soft spoken and just like, hi, I'm not trying to alarm you or anything like that. I just think you're cute and would like
Yeah.
to go on a date. And it's really as simple as that.
That seriously, that's literally all it is. Like literally just say what you're thinking. They know why you're going up to them. You know what I mean? And also there's I think there's two key things, right? Make eye contact, but not the weird
Oh
one.
my
Just
goodness.
make eye contact. Eye
Oh
contact is
yeah.
so important, you know? And then also, and then also, like, I guess it's not, this isn't a piece of advice. This is just something to remember if anyone is watching this, like any dude is watching this to this point. It's like the worst that they could say is no, and like who cares? Like it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Like what they say no, okay. Who cares? Like you have nothing to lose. It's like, dude, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It won't
It
kill you.
it
It doesn't feel
it
terrible.
hurts it hurts your ego a bit, and that's fine. Obviously, some dudes could use a nice little hit to the ego every now and then. But but like and even if they laugh in your face, then you know that that's the type of person you shouldn't be with to begin with.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
learn so much from these things.
Dude, yeah, man, that's actually, I used to say, okay, so I used to do these Periscope streams on Twitter when Periscope was a little bit bigger, and we would do like dating streams like a long time ago, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. But I would tell guys that all the time. I'd be like, dude, like you need to like practice going up to girls. Not even if you guys don't date, even if you don't go on a whole bunch of dates, just like go up to as many girls as you can, because like you'll get so much more comfortable. And it's not even a douchey thing like you're trying to like get this girl, like get that girl. It's just more the fact that's like, man, you get so much better at communicating, you get so much better at improv, not even just for relationships, for like any type of conversation. It's just that the reason this one there's so much utility to it is because, like you said, like a lot of people, they get nervous, they might stumble over their words. You're having a lot of courage in a vulnerable situation. You get a lot out of it. It's I don't know. I think people should do it more.
Have female friends, because they will tell you that like
Yeah.
while not everyone agrees on everything, like girls will just be like, oh, I love when a guy just says this, or when he's clear like this. You really just pick up like from talking to your female friends, figuring out like, okay, girls really don't like it when you do this thing, but they're perfect. Most girls are perfectly fine when you're just like gentle like this or something like that, and just like value female relationships because it's really good input.
Oh yeah, bro. Girls are wild. I have one
It's
friend,
an
dude.
it's an insider report.
Dude, I have one friend that when I was like in my mid 20s, I would literally just text her back, what do I text this girl? What do I do this? What do I do that? And she would send me text messages and she'd be like, copy and paste this. And I would do it. And throughout the day, dude, it was like she was just like telling me what was going to happen next. And it would just happen. She would just like it sounds so bad. It wasn't anything bad, but I was just like in shock. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. This is insane. But yeah,
Girls
female
talk, dude.
friends.
I
Female
don't.
friends are
I am the world's worst texter. So like
same.
whoever I'm with, I always like communicate that. I'm like, call me or FaceTime me, I will forget to text you back probably. And it's not even that I don't care about you. It really just is I don't know how to like flirt over text. I don't know how to. That's why I slid into one DM in my life and I hated it. I
Yeah,
was like,
dude.
this is awful.
I don't do the DM thing either. It's too complicated. I'm bad at texting too. Even phone calls, I'm like, I'm good. I'm better. I would say I'd prefer to call, but I'd rather be in person. I'm like, it's so much more normal.
It's
Technology is
just
weird.
it's so sketch. It's like I feel like there's enough like bad stigma around DMs, and I'm like,
Oh
man, this
yeah.
is pointless too.
And you get lost in there. You know what I mean? There's tons of them. Tons of them. If a girl's
Oh yeah,
going
yeah.
when your girl's worth going out of your way to like DM her, it's like there's like probably dozens of them sitting in there. You know, it's like
But yeah, even like the amount of girls that I know, they're like, yeah, that's like I'll be working or something, and a dude will come up to the shift and will like talk to me for a minute, and then we'll leave, and then the girl will come up and be like, oh, that guy's slid into my DMs like 3 times like this past week, and it's like. Really? And they're like, yeah, and it's the amount of like dudes just out here, man. They're just
oh
wild.
yeah, bro. No, seriously, seriously. It's I know it makes it's the reason why I don't send the DMs. One of the reasons. One of the reasons.
Especially
Doesn't
like
happen.
it's very different. The one time I did, it was because I literally like it was very time sensitive because I was like
Mm.
I had like a ticket to like it was a Harlem Globetrotters
Oh,
game.
it's dope.
And so I was like, oh, and I'm every girl I've ever asked out, I've done it in person. As far as I know, I've done it in person. And so I was like, oh, I want to see her to be able to ask her to go, but I could not find her anywhere.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and so then I was like, all right, I really have no other option but to do this. But like, even then, I was like, man, I'm stooping to a new low here. And she said no too, and I was like, man, something like a dude from my hall to the Harlem Globetrotters game.
Hey, that's probably fire though. She missed out, bro.
Oh yeah,
It's
it
probably
was a good
fire.
time.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually putting this out in 2 parts now because we went over a little bit. So I'm gonna do obviously as much as I can, probably an hour of it on IGTV, and I'm gonna do the rest of it, all of it on YouTube. So it'll be
Okay.
like that. Um, let's see, what are we closing this off on? What type of do you have advice? Literally, you can say whatever you want, man. Like I always tell people, like close it
Oh,
out on however you want. Like, what do you want people to leave off on? It could be about dating. It doesn't gotta be about dating. It could be whatever. I'm gonna have all your links in the description anyway. But
well, follow me on TikTok. That's the big one. I think really one of the main thing that I thought of when I thought of like topics for the book was the concept of flexing faith, which is
mm,
basically like, all right, so within Christianity, we're taught to look for certain things within other people, and they're great things to you want to be godly, you want to be caring and kind and generous, and then you want to be like someone that's serving, like someone that's going to camps, conferences, on the worship team, whatever. But really, like I think that people, even maybe even subconsciously, do some of those things so that they look attractive within the culture,
mm,
and that's the wrong motivation. Um, it should really be the heart of it should be I'm here to serve, I'm here to love, I'm here to be here and be used as a servant for this purpose, not I'm here to look attractive while working.
yeah,
Um, and not that we should, not that like if you were sharing the gospel for the purpose of I want to look good, I want to look so Christian, just for some sort of Christian clout. I'm not saying you should stop sharing the gospel because I think that because it talks about that in Philippians 1 where there's these dudes that had like the wrong motivations for sharing the gospel. Paul was just excited that they were sharing the gospel. He was like, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he made the distinction that like some dudes were doing it for the wrong purpose, but he was like, hey,
yeah,
they're sharing it, so great. But I don't think that means that you should stop serving or sharing the gospel. I think that means that you should look at your heart and reassess your motivations of why you're trying to be in this. If you by chance someone sees you serving, sees you at a camp, sees whatever, and they're like, hey, they're cute, and they come up to you and a thing comes out of that, no harm, no foul. Like that's great, but your primary motivation should not be I'm trying to make sure everybody sees the I in faith. Like it is not about you. That and it's you can't just go around calling people out on that. You can't just be like, this is definitely what you're doing. It's very much as an individual. Every individual has to look at their individual motivations for why they're doing the things that they're doing
Yeah.
and saying the things they're saying. And I think just about everybody can catch themselves at times being like, my motivations for this were more about me than it was about the cause. And just realize that and switch it up, make the adjustments and keep going. But keep serving, keep spreading the gospel, keep making disciples. That's the key, regardless of whether you were in a relationship or not. You are to make disciples.
100% the epitome of what you're called to do. 100. Sorry, it froze right there, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It froze for a second.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, I'm missing everything he's saying.
Oh no, I
Right
just said
now.
it's 100% the epitome of what we're supposed to do. It's like if
Yeah,
there's anything that you're going to take other than like obviously accepting Jesus as your Lord and Savior, it would be to go make disciples of all these different people. So
yeah.
good stuff, man. And I never close these out like regularly. I'm always like, man, how should I do this? Guys, this was another casual dating podcast. Go follow this guy and everything. I'm gonna have his links in the description. And I just started asking you guys for the Patreon. I'm not saying you guys have to do it. Obviously, it's your choice, but it does help small creators out like myself continue to spruce these podcasts and this content up. So check those out. That link in the description. And then, guys, if you have any other questions, send me a DM on Instagram and give me some topics for the next show. And yeah, I appreciate all your guys' support. You guys have been telling me that you guys like these, so thank you. And bro,
Give this man support. He's got a niece to support.
dude, for real, for real. The kids in the future that I'm gonna have, they need to. I don't know if they need to go to college, but they got to do something. So help me out. Thanks, man. I appreciate you being on.
Man, I was so excited when you sent me that DM. I was like, I love talking about it. And so like anytime I get to, I'm like, man, this is incredible. And so I really appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah, dude. No, so like I wouldn't ask anyone to be on this if I wouldn't ask them to be on it a second time. So like, dude, like anytime you want to be on it again, dude, let me know. Seriously. And then we'll do this again. It was good.
I'm down.
Cool, cool. All right, everybody. Like and subscribe and share wherever you're at. Follow, whatever you gotta do, and I will hear from you guys next time.